Welcome everybody to our Parent Involvement Committee meeting on November 24th, and I'm going to pass it over to Valerie to get us started this evening.
Thank you very much, Erin. I want to say welcome again to everyone. And now for the land acknowledgement. The Durham District School Board acknowledges that many Indigenous nations have long-standing relationships, both historic and modern, with the territories upon which our school board and schools are located. Today, this area is home to many Indigenous peoples from across Turtle Island. We acknowledge that the Durham region forms a part of the traditional and treaty territory of the Mississaugas of Scugog Island First Nation, the Mississauga peoples, and the treaty territory of the Chippewas of Georgina Island First Nation. It's on these ancestral and treaty lands that we teach, learn, and live. Thank you. At this time, I want to take time to welcome everyone. Thank you for your presence with us tonight in this our PIC meeting. First of all, I want to take this time to welcome our Director of Education, Nora Marsh.
Thank you, Valerie. I really appreciate, I know you have a full agenda, and I really appreciate having a few moments at the beginning. I had the pleasure of attending one of the PIC meetings last year when I was new to the district to introduce myself to the parents and others involved in the PIC work. And wanted to come back now that I have been named as permanent director to once again express gratitude for everything that everyone is doing around this table, and also to acknowledge the openness we feel in terms of making sure that you know that the PIC voice is valued. You're incredible partners to us. You've held such wonderful events over the course of last year in terms of, even during the pandemic, organizing a parental involvement engagement evening. And so just wanted to definitely make that connection again, and for you to know how valued the work is that you do. I served on a PIC committee actually when I was associate director at Ottawa Carleton District School Board, because I loved the positive energy that parents always brought to the table in terms of the work of the district, and being critical friends to us as well. I also wanted to acknowledge that we've had some shifts, and so Superintendent Mundy, who has served with PIC for a few years now, has shifted over to our Human Resources Department, and as a result of that, we're really excited for the work that she will do there, but also recognize that we needed to shift the portfolio, and really happy to introduce, and I know that I think she'll be on the next slide, Superintendent Erin Elmhurst, who just, I think, does a wonderful natural job of always welcoming voice and creating synergy and engagement opportunities. And so I think she'll be a real asset to the PIC table, and wanted to acknowledge the shift mid-year is an unusual one, but really appreciate both Heather's work with the committee previously, and know that you'll find in Erin's leadership great support for the voice and work at the PIC table. So once again, thank you, and looking forward to the opportunities we have over the course of this year together.
Thank you so much, Director Marsh. And at this time, we have Erin Elmhurst. I was going to say a little bit about you, Miss Nora, but then you took it away from me, so I'm sorry. All right, so
I took advantage of the table. My apologies.
That's okay. That's all right. Thank you very much, and welcome. All right, Acting Superintendent of Education with the Ddsb from October 2020 to present, Superintendent Elmhurst has been an educator for 22 years, with 12 of those years as an administrator with the Ddsb, building trusting relationships throughout the system. Most recently, she has excelled in her role with over the past 4 years as the education officers for Indigenous, ESL, and outdoor education, where she has built a robust and collaborative ESL team from a department of 4 to 24. Awesome work. After examining the needs of ELLS and adjusting the service delivering model, a collaborative leader or approach is centered on human rights and equity, and she has co-led and facilitated the capacity building of Indigenous and racialized educators in the administrative promotions process. Please help me welcome Superintendent Erin Helmhurst. Welcome.
Jimmy Gwetch. That was quite beautiful. Thank you so much. Anin bozo Erin Indigenous Oshawa Donjaba Anishinabe Kwe Minwa Jaganash Kwe Endao. And so I welcomed myself in Anishinaabemowin, and I introduced myself to you in Anishinaabemowin to start off. So thank you so much. I'm honored and privileged to be a part of this committee. When you said, Val, 22 years, I had to think for a moment because I forgot that I was that old, and that I have been in education for 22 years. So thank you so much for reminding me of that. I'm so looking forward to working with this committee. As the Indigenous Education Officer and ESL Education Officer, I was able to really work closely with parents in that portfolio as well. So hope that I can bring some of that with me here. Currently, as the acting superintendent, I support Pickering Family of Schools. So I know we have some Pickering representatives here with us today. So I look forward to meeting and engaging with you as well as all representatives. I also support Indigenous education, early years, the poverty strategy, partnership engagement, and the PIC committee. So I'm very excited about working with all of you. Heather has left some pretty large shoes to fill. And so I'll be looking to her for her guidance and mentorship along the way, and appreciative of the lovely welcome and excited about the work we're going to do together. Chimigwach.
Thank you so much, Superintendent Elmhurst. Welcome and thank you for being with us. All right, at this time, we want to say a special thank you to our Superintendent, Heather Mundy, for her support and guidance in the past 2 years. Superintendent has guided us through this parent engagement. We wish Heather all the best in her new role as Human Resources Services Superintendent. We will miss you, Heather. All the best.
Thank you. I'll just, I leave you in very good hands. Erin will be wonderful to work with. And I don't think the shoes are too big to fill. You will find your own pair. And just say your passion from this committee in terms of supporting parents and the work around connecting with school community councils and wanting to ensure that we make a difference for our families and our students in the classroom through the work that you do is greatly appreciated. So wish you all the best, and I look forward to attending some of your events in the future.
Thank you, Heather, and all the best to you as well. All right, at this time, we want to welcome our Parent Involvement Committee members. So we have Tiffany Sherwood, who is one of our co-chairs. Tiffany, maybe you could give a hand wave. We have as our parent representative, Michelle Montgomery and Ted Foster from Pickering. Representing Ajax, we have Jennifer McLaughlin and Patrick Semester. Whitby, Simon Karuki and Margaret Ogunkwa. Oshawa, we have Adriana Fajardo, Chadna, and Patricia Clark. For the community representatives, we have Rupal Patel, Nigel Hunter, and Maybelline Brown. Our trustee representatives, Scott Templeton, trustee, Town of Whitby, Carolyn Morton, alternate trustee. Our staff representatives, we have Caroline Waters, elementary teacher, Sarah Katab, secondary teacher, Frank Samuels, elementary administrator, Kavita Kanavali, secondary administrator, King Brathwaite, communications officer, and Erin Helmers, our superintendent. We also have with us tonight Hannah from Special Ed Advisory Committee, and we welcome you to this, our meeting tonight as well. Thank you for taking the time for being with us tonight. At this time, we will have our agenda. We'd like for someone to approve our agenda from the last meeting. So can we have two people who approve our agenda?
I'll approve.
Thank you. And
I can second it.
thank you. All right. And then can we have two people to approve the minutes from our last meeting, please?
I'd be happy to approve it.
Thank you.
Scott.
Thank you, Scott. And can we have a second?
Frank Samuels, I approve.
Thank you, Frank. Appreciate that. Awesome. All right. At this time, we are going to have Devika Mathieu, who is with us tonight, and she will be doing input on human rights policy consultation. Thank you. Go ahead, Devika. Thank you very much and welcome.
Thanks very much, everybody, and good evening. I'm glad to meet with you again today to talk about the Human Rights Policy Consultation. I don't have a full presentation to take you through today. At our last meeting, we went through the policy framework and the consultation plan, and I believe all of the materials were shared with you after that. And the materials included both the framework for developing the policy, that included an overview of the proposed content and themes, and the consultation plan as well. So for today, I just wanted to quickly give you a quick recap and update on where we are, and then spend some time to invite any questions or feedback that you may have. So again, we're in the early stages of developing a human rights policy and procedures, and these are expected to help everyone better understand human rights and what our roles and responsibilities are for protecting those rights, and to help us identify, prevent, and address discrimination and harassment in our schools and our workplaces, and also to support safe and healthy and respectful working and learning environments for everybody. So to support the development of the policy, we are engaging and consulting widely with all Ddsb community members, so students, employees, our unions and federations, families and caregivers, and community partners, so that we can include and reflect everyone's voices and perspectives in our policy and in our procedures. So what we're consulting on now is the policy framework and the consultation plan. And really that is, do we have the key content themes covered, and whose voices are missing from the consultation plan, and how can we best engage with them as the work progresses? We'll then take that initial feedback to help write and inform the policy and procedures, and then come back to all of those communities with those once those are drafted for further consultation as well. So far, aside from engaging with PIC, we've also engaged with the Special Education Advisory Committee and the Equity and Diversity Steering Committee for their feedback. We've also met with Student Senate and the student trustees, the Indigenous Education Advisory Circle, and the co-chairs of the DDSB's affinity networks. And messages will be going out to families, students, and employees tomorrow to share information about the consultation and to invite feedback as well. Those messages will be supported by information on our website, which includes a dedicated web page with those presentation materials that I shared with PIC, a two-page summary of those documents, a little bit easier to digest than those slide presentations, a frequently asked questions, a FAQ document, a survey and a thought exchange. And there's also a video featuring representatives from our DDSB affinity groups to help share information in different languages and to help reach families to encourage everyone to participate. One way to participate and to have and for people to have their say at this stage is through a voluntary short survey and a thought exchange. And there are also other options available, like a separate phone line and an email to provide verbal or written feedback. We'll also be sharing suggested content and key messages for administrators to be able to include in their school newsletters, to include in social media posts, announcements and meetings and SCC meetings to help spread the word and to invite people to participate in the survey. And if you're comfortable in doing so, we'd really very much appreciate your support in helping to share those messages about the policy and consultation with your networks as well to help spread the word. And really to follow up on the great feedback that you provided last month. I do know that it was hard for some of you to hear my presentation last time, so I'm happy to take you through any of the materials again if it would help. Everything will be posted on our website tomorrow. And I'll otherwise turn it over to you and take some time today to answer any questions that you may have and invite some additional feedback. And if I may, and if there's time, I do have a few questions for you as well. So with that, I will just ask if there's anyone who has any questions or feedback based on the materials that were shared.
Great. So if you have a question for Divika, then please go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, Davika. Maybe I could ask a quick question just for clarification. Everything you've explained sounds absolutely wonderful that we're doing. Is there a way, because I think I asked this last time, it does sound like we don't have this type of policy or procedure in place in the DDSB. So I wonder if there's a way we can message it out to the parent community to just say it's changing or it's refining, because how we presented it now, to me, sounds like, oh, we're just getting going. So, and I know that's not the truth, but maybe it's a way that, you know, the parents could understand exactly what we're doing with this.
Thank you for that question. It's a great question. And we did try to embed it both in the video that we will be sharing, as well as in our materials on our website as well, to say that the DDSB does do a lot of great work, and there are some policies and procedures that are already in place that help support concepts around human rights and equity. But there are some gaps that we're hoping to address through this policy so that people understand and are aware of their rights, their roles and responsibilities, particularly as it relates to human rights. And also one of the biggest pieces that we hope to be able to cover through this policy and these procedures is a complaint process. So when someone does have an issue, they know what the steps are, they know where to go, and they know what's going to happen with their issue, with their complaint as well.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Awesome. Any other questions or comments?
And if there aren't any questions, I do have a couple for you, if that's okay. And feel free, if anyone has a question as I'm going through these as well, to just let me know. So if you've had a chance to review the materials that were shared, was there anything that you thought might be missing, or something that that we would need to potentially explain in greater detail when we go through our policy and procedure writing process?
Anybody had a chance to go over that? Has any comment? Question?
So my next question.
Foster has raised his hand. I saw a little hand notification came up, and I believe it was Ted.
Sorry. Just for another point of clarification, does DDSB have a human rights office?
At the moment, we have a Human Rights and Equity Advisor. That's me. It's an office of one. But we also have an equity department and an Indigenous education department. And equity and human rights considerations are also embedded throughout all of our portfolios throughout the system. But a standalone human rights office, no. But we do have an advisor in the role that I play.
Is there a plan to establish a human rights office? So going down the road, there would be an avenue for these types of I don't want to say complaints, but you know what I mean, just type of vehicle for it.
Yeah, thank you for that question. I know it's something that we are thinking about. Part of it will depend on as we start to develop what the procedure looks like. And we're looking at what other boards do, what other organizations do, and how they set up that process. What would be the best model and structure for a board our size and for the volume of complaints that we currently get, as well as those that we expect to potentially receive. You know, often through a process like this, people become aware of their rights and the number of complaints may increase. So those are things that we're considering. I can't say that we have a definitive answer yet. Certainly something in the back of my mind as we develop what the program and the procedures will look like behind the policy.
Fantastic, thank you.
Thank you for the
And
question.
I also see, Devika, that Frank Samuels had his hand raised.
Thanks, Davika. Thank you for your work. It's clear, it's easy to follow. I'm just wondering, in terms of reaching out, has any thought been given to other countries that might have similar experiences to Canada? I'm thinking particularly of Australia at the moment, just given the political situation around China. I don't know their education system well at all. I don't know if they have anything that we could look to and say, this is their experience and this is what they learned. We can repeat it or not. I know that your presentation speaks about reaching out to other boards. I'm wondering if any of those boards would possibly be overseas. You can tell from my accent, I'm from South Africa. I'm wondering if there would be anything to be gained from their experience and their Truth and Reconciliation Committee's work that made its way into the education sector.
That's a great question, and you're right that we have thought about consulting with other boards and organizations in Ontario, but hadn't thought broader than that at this point. So I really like that idea and suggestion, so we can see what else is out there. One of the questions that we asked through the consultation process, as well as if anyone knows of any organizations, you know, whether they're boards or not, school boards or not, in or outside of the education sector, that has model human rights policies that we may want to look at as part of our process. But I've certainly flagged that as a point of research for me to do as we develop the policy. And the other piece that just tweaked for me as well is that in my role, I'm part of a network of similar positions across other boards in Ontario, and we meet quite regularly to talk about what are some of the best practices. So it's not just good for our potential policy, but also to share with that group as well. So thank you for flagging that.
Thanks, Davika. And if I can help, I might be able to dredge up some contacts from South Africa. If you'd like that, I could at least put them in touch with you and see if anything comes from there.
Thank you so much for that offer. I'll connect with you after offline and we can figure that piece out. Thank you so much though.
I think I see that Scott has his hand up as well.
In Appendix A, you have right at the bottom, it says special programs. Could you explain the types of special programs that you're referring to?
So for our policy, it wouldn't necessarily be to spell out a specific special program, but it would include references to the ability to create special programs under the Human Rights Code. So for those who may not be aware, the Human Rights Code does include a section that's, so the code is about not discriminating based on the grounds, but it does allow for special programs or special initiatives to be put in place to address historical disadvantage against certain groups. And so it's a defense under the code to be able to say I've created a special program to fulfill that obligation. So at the moment, we're thinking of including that reference in the policy so that if we do need to think about creating a special program, that the policy provides that the guidance and direction consistent with the code to be able to do that. And it has also come up in the context of the changes to hiring practices that based on the policy and procedure memorandum that the ministry has put out around trying to diversify hiring practices as well. So it's just in the early stages of that piece. The memorandum references the ability to be able to create special programs. So thought it was important to be able to include that in our policy as well.
I see another hand. I think it was Margaret. Is that correct?
Yes. My question is, apart from the discussions as to what will go into the working document, why this consultation now? I know the recent riots across the US and talk about racial equality and systemic racism and all of that. Is that the only reason, or are there other reasons within the board that made or precipitate this, delving into civil human rights and, so what are the catalysts for this initiative?
So if I can clarify, for the policy itself or for the consultation or for both?
For both.
Okay. So I'll start with the policy. So just to recap a little bit of my role as a human rights and equity advisor, part of it is to help build a culture of human rights in the organization. I just started in February, and part of what I started to do was to look at what are the policies in place, what are some of the other systemic pieces where we might have some gaps from a human rights perspective to be able to build that into the work that I'm doing. So recognizing the need early on that we didn't have a standalone human rights policy, that was one of the initiatives that I wanted to bring forward as part of my role. And then the piece around the consultation is, in developing a policy, it's good practice to be able to consult with and hear from the people that are impacted most by that policy. So really wanted to be able to bring forward a consultation plan that included students, families, employees, and community partners, because everybody's perspectives and expertise will be important considerations as we develop a policy that impacts those groups. As I said earlier, lots of organizations and some of the other boards already have policies, and it would have been really easy to just take those policies that exist and tweak them a little bit and put them out, but thought it was really important to be able to engage with communities here to get feedback and perspectives about what should go into a policy, what are some of the concerns here that we need to think about in a policy, and that's what precipitated this consultation process, and also recognizing that we wanted to get early consultation. So as much as we have some of those themes and content outlined in those slide presentations, we wanted to get early input on that and then go back to communities afterwards to make sure that we got it right in the actual draft policies as well. So it's not just going to communities once, it's going to communities multiple times to get initial feedback on the draft policies, and then share the final policies at the end of the process as well.
Thank you for that.
I can see that Ted has raised his hand. Sorry, Valerie, if I'm cutting you off.
No,
I'm not sure you can see your
please
hand.
do, because I can't see it. So please go ahead.
I'm on hands.
Thank you.
It's okay. Sorry. I guess just one more question. When we talked about the consultation, you did mention all the employee groups and stuff like that that will address through. So all staffing is addressed, and then will there be a plan going forward once this is settled to actually roll this out to all teaching staff, administration, I hate the term non-teaching, but the support staff that are with the DDSB, is the intent to actually roll that out there so they have all the tools and things necessary?
Yes, absolutely. Great question. And yes, we're first of all, to hopefully address a few parts of that question, consulting with all employee groups at this phase and in the next phase of the policy development process. And the policy itself will apply to all of those groups. So any implementation plans, whether it's training, resources, tools to support the rollout of the policy, will apply to all groups as well.
Fantastic. Sorry for all the questions.
No, not at all. Really welcome them.
Thank you very much. Awesome. Any other questions or suggestions or comments?
If there are no questions from the group, may I ask a couple more questions if there's time?
Go ahead.
Thank you so much. So I think we talked a little bit about, whether there are model policies from other organizations that we should look at. So really appreciated that feedback about looking outside of Canada. But if anyone else has any suggestions, either now at this meeting or feel free to reach out to me after about policies that you may have come across from other organizations that you think we should take a look at, please do let me know. So I don't think that was a question, it was more of a statement. But my question was, when we think about the groups that are outlined in the consultation plan, are there any groups or voices from your perspectives that may be missing? And if so, what's the best way to reach them?
Ted, you're up.
Sorry.
No, great.
So how we're, I think I missed, how are we going to communicate with all the parent community? Because there is this notion that everyone has a smartphone, everyone has access to the internet, but how are we going to address the communities that don't have this type of access? And will it be paper? Will it be, whatever languages we need to send it out in? I'm just curious how we're going to address that, because that'll be important too.
Absolutely, and thanks again for that really great question. You're right that the primary way is through those electronic means, but we've really given a lot of thought to the fact that we have several families and community members that don't have that ready access, and working through other means like school newsletters, paper copies that are going home for those families that we know don't have access, to be able to share information about this process and how they can participate in ways that don't require that kind of technology. And also looking at, through the consultation process, hearing from communities directly about what are the best ways to share information and invite feedback through this process as well. So we have some ideas already, and we're also hoping that through the process, we'll be able to generate some creative ideas and solutions as the work progresses as well.
The only thing I might add to that is just to be careful for our secondary parents, because sometimes in the elementary panel, it's the kids bring home something, the parents have a look at it in the backpacks, etc. In high school, not so much. So we need to somehow capture that group as well. That's just my experience. Sorry.
No, that's a great point. Thank you so much.
Any other questions or comments? All right.
I see that Frank has his hand up.
Okay, go ahead.
Thanks. I feel like I'm in class. Is there money to put advertisements into local newspapers?
That's a great question. It's one of the suggestions that had come up in part of our early consultations as well. I think what we might do is take that back to see if we can work that into the next stage of the consultation when we actually have the policies and procedures. And if people feel like that's a viable solution to reach some of those communities that we aren't able to typically reach, then that's something that we can build into the consultation plan moving forward as well. I think it is a good suggestion, and I've heard it from another group as well. So really wanting to pay special attention to that to see if that's something that's possible.
Awesome. All right. Any other suggestions, comments, questions?
I think Trish has her hand up.
Thank you.
Would it be possible for us to possibly include it into the our communication one that we have coming out of, that we create coming out of PIC ourselves?
I think so. I would defer to those who are more familiar with that process, but any opportunities we have to be able to share with this table and through your networks, I think would be really appreciated. One of the things in the messages that we're drafting for or that we're sending to administrators is some key messages to include in SCC meetings. But if there's other ways to promote and share the information, I think that would be, it's very welcome from my perspective. We'll just have to figure out how to get it done.
I could just jump in for a second there. We do have the PIC newsletter that we're working on right now. The only thing is the initial consultation, the deadline is December 8th. So I'm not sure if we're going to be able to make it for that issue, for the next issue coming. However, maybe we can do a follow-up with Devika on this for the March issue of the newsletter.
That's like a great idea.
Thank you.
Awesome. All right. Are there any other suggestions, comments, or questions?
Sorry, Devika, can I assume that you will have been in contact with all the GTA boards for this? That's how you checking to see what other the GTA boards have in place.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Have already done some of the legwork for the big boards that already have policies, and some of the other boards are in similar position to ours, where they're at the beginning stages of drafting their policies and procedures as well. And there are, as I mentioned, I'm part of a group of human rights and equity advisors from other boards. So we're in pretty frequent contact to share information and some of the best practices and resources so that we can take those back to adjust them for our particular board's needs. Not sure, I can't see hands, but if there are no other questions, then I'll just end by saying thank you again for your time on the agenda today, and to confirm again that when the policies and procedures are drafted, we will be coming back to share them for your input. But just wanted to do a final check if there were any other questions or comments.
All right. So if there are no other questions or comments, we want to say thank you so much for your input, Vika. We really appreciate it. And I'm sure we'll be putting all those comments and all those questions to use when we go into our meeting again. All right.
Thank you very much.
You are very welcome. Thank you for coming and sharing again. Awesome. All right. At this time, if we have no other questions or comments, we will be going on a break. I guess our break will go until, is it a 10-minute break or till 8 o'clock? Welcome back, everyone. All right. At this time, we'll have Hannah from SEAC, the Special Ed Advisory Committee, and she will introduce herself and say a few things about SEAC. Go ahead, Hannah.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Valerie. So I just wanted to introduce myself fully. My name is Hannah Nguyen, and as some of you guys may know already, but just because I'm not sure that everyone is familiar with the Special Education Advisory Committee, I just wanted to make sure that you guys knew or know more about us. And so we are similar to PIC, an advisory committee, speaking to the board, in particular about advising and making recommendations to the board concerning anything that has to do with special education programs and services. And so on the committee, and it's called SEAC, S-E-A-C, we are represented by a number of associations. And so currently we're represented by the Association for Bright Children, Autism Ontario, the Durham chapter. Similar to PIC, we also have representatives from the school board, the trustees. We are also represented by the Inclusive Services superintendent there as well. And then we also have the other associations are the Durham Down Syndrome Association, the Learning Disabilities Association of the Durham region, Ontario Association for Families of Children with Communication Disorders, and Voice for Deaf and Hard of Hearing Children. And then myself, I am the Easter Seals Ontario representative. And so for those who may or may not be familiar with Easter Seals is representing children with physical disabilities. And so I'm the representative for Easter Seals Ontario on behalf of SEAC. And so those are a few of the associations. Actually, I should say those are the associations that are represented. And we also have members at large. And so similar to PIC, we do have 2 members at large from the community. And then we and I mentioned we also have trustees. So we have 2 trustees represented there as well. So as far as I understood, and just to for some of the people that I listened a little bit to the PIC meeting last month, that some of you guys are just joining new. So my understanding is that we're trying to create connections between the 2 committees and really wanting to increase the awareness of PIC to SEAC, but also of SEAC to PIC. And so, and I'll just speak a little bit to myself. So I am the mother of 2 children, or 2 girls in Durham. And one of my daughters, my oldest, is in this French immersion program and is what grade now? She's in grade 6. And then my second daughter, who is in grade 1, is in the special education program. And so she is my daughter with special needs, and she has multiple exceptionalities, as they would classify it in special education. And she is in a special education class. And so I just wanted to introduce myself. And one of the reasons I really wanted to be involved in PIC here is because I think there's a lot of intersection between our committees, and also that being a parent, I think this is a group that's very close to my heart here as well. And I'll look forward to being on video next time. I did mention to some people that I just seem to be having an unstable internet connection today, but I'll look forward to going on video for the February meeting, I believe is our next one. So thank you, Valerie, for the opportunity to introduce myself and a little bit about SEAC. And I don't know if anybody wanted some additional information about Easter Seals. I forgot to share a bit more about that association as well.
All right. I guess you could take a minute and go ahead and do that if you wish.
Okay, great. Yeah. So I mentioned a little bit that Easter Seals is across Ontario here, and some of the things that we're probably best known for are our camps. So we have 2 locations of camps specifically for children with physical disabilities. So there's a lot of activities that they might not be able to participate in, but it's a fully accessible camp. And we are also known for a lot of our fundraising. So we have an equipment program. And so for children with physical disabilities, a lot of times they have equipment needs that aren't covered by funding, either through the government or any otherwise. And so there's families can apply for some of the funding for that. We're also well known for administering some programs on behalf of the ministry. I think the ministry is of long-term children in care, or I might be calling that incorrectly. So we do the incontinence grant, and there's also a top-up grant. And those are some of the major things that Easter Seals is involved in.
Great. Thank you so much. We are so well informed now that you have told us all that information. Great information. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. And thank you also for your time tonight. All right, Tiffany, are you ready to go ahead?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I just wanted to introduce, oh, sorry, one second. The subcommittees are going to speak for a little bit and discuss. We have the Communication Committee, the Welcome to Ddsb Committee, and the Programs Committee, just to speak a little bit about some updates from those committees. So whoever is going to speak for the Communication Committee, can you can go ahead and take over.
Thanks, Tiffany. This is Kimberly Brathwaite. So recently I became the chair of the Communications Committee for the PIC committee. So I'm actually really excited and happy to be working with everybody. I'm also new to the committee as well, as communications officer with the Ddsb for the last 2 years, and working in the industry for many years. This is actually a perfect fit for me to work on this committee. So we have already hit the ground running. Our committee has met already and talked about a couple things that we wanted to put together for the December newsletter. So we have a few ideas already, and we have some stories and some content. I'm just working through a few things now and hoping to have it designed. So the plan with this newsletter is to continue to release it 3 times a year. Last year, a template was created. It looks really good. So I've already been in contact with our creative services team. We're going to put a really nice one together for next month. So I'm excited about that. Hopefully all of you like it. And it will be distributed to the parent community as well. So it's going to be on the website, hopefully also to share on social media. And like I said, we'll also try and email it out to all of our parents. I don't know if anybody else from the committee maybe wants to say anything. Frank, I know Trish, you weren't able to make our meeting, but hopefully we can get together at our next meeting coming up. Looking forward to it. But that's pretty much it on our end. We're getting started. I'm excited. And one other thing before I open up, I'm not sure if Frank has anything to say, but if you do have any ideas for future newsletters, we're already putting together some possible ideas for the next couple for the year. Please feel free to either email me directly or maybe Manon. Manon, hopefully we can provide a main contact for you to send your ideas, because I do want parent input on different things for the newsletter. So it is actually something that you guys will want to read and care about. So that's it. Frank, did you have anything? If not, we can have some of the other committees jump in. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Sorry, Kimberly. Much as what we talked about before, is your thought to have other avenues of distribution other than email, etc., for our parents that may not have access to those type of things?
So what we can do is there is an administrator's email that goes out to administrators every week. So when we send out our newsletter, we can also let them know to also include it in their newsletters. So they would know within their schools which families will actually need a hard copy version. Personally, that's not something we would know per se, but the administrators would know, and they would be able to provide that to the families who would require that.
Again, the comment for the secondary schools, we need to be cognizant of that too, because again, not everything's going to come home that way. So
yes, we will definitely do whatever we can to try and facilitate that.
I think I can see Hannah's hand up.
Yes, I was just wasn't sure if there was a queue. Yeah, I was just thinking in terms of the newsletter that goes out, I know one of the things the board has is just making the documents accessible, but I think we also have families and parents who have special needs, and was just wondering if you guys could just educate me a little bit on this newsletter and letting me know how it is made available. And then additionally, if you hadn't considered it, maybe that was a secondary thought, is just wondering how accessible it is for families that are reading it.
So thanks for that question, Hannah. Basically, with all of our communications pieces, as you probably already know, from January 2021, everything has to be AODA compliant. So these are things that we're already working on to make sure that our new materials and even some of our older ones, I know they're working on trying to transform those into being AODA compliant if they aren't already, but going forward, it is our plan to make sure that they are compliant and that people have access, who may have some accessibility issues, that they will also have access to it and be able to enjoy it.
That's great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Was there any further questions for Kimberly?
Looks like Frank has something to say. Oh, you're muted, Frank.
So, yeah, sorry, my spacebar wasn't working. It's not really for Tiffany. I guess it's for everybody. It's the same question that I put to Ted. So I'm new to this committee. I know that some 200 plus people signed up for the TEND presentation. I also know that 80 people attended. I'm stuck. I don't know if anyone on the committee has good suggestions as to how we reach people. Like, for example, if everyone on the committee personally invited 5 people to the next meeting or to the next presentation, we would have more people than sending an email to the entire board. And I'm just not sure how to beat that. I don't know if it's lethargy. I don't know if it's apathy. I don't know if it's covidity. I don't know what the answer is to attract people. And I always think there's a cost-benefit ratio. You know, I would suggest printing 1 million flyers and having the post office put one in every single house in Durham, then we'd be accused of damaging the environment. So it's much easier to send an email which costs much less but doesn't reach everybody. If anybody has, either from your professional associations or other personal associations, ways of reaching people that you feel confident work, I know I'm ready to listen, and I think as a committee maybe we can spend some time exploring that so that all the good work that's being put into what we're doing reaches more than 70 people out of 70,000 possible students.
Good evening, Frank. So I'm just going to speak from my experience with the Durham Educators Network for South Asians, and social media is a very big platform that we use. And I do recognize that not everyone, you know, is on social media or has access to technology, but we've had the most buy-in with social media. So we're on Twitter, we have a Facebook page, and every opportunity we have to advertise, promote our events, we definitely put in our social media handles. So for the event tomorrow that we have 139 parents signed up, which is a large number. So that definitely social media, website is something I would recommend. Thank you.
Sorry, Frank, could I suggest maybe, that lovely tool that administrators use to reach parents, an email sent out, and it eludes me the actual title now, but then I get a phone call.
Remind?
School Messenger.
School Messenger. So you hit all your parents, whether, they get an email and they also get a phone call to do this. And it might be just an avenue where if we really want to get a message out to everybody, it gets there, right?
Ted, I'll be happy to include you in my weekly messages. I've been doing it since I started at the board. Every week there's a voicemail message. Now I transcribe the voicemail message and send that out. And then I'll send you the stats that I get from from School Messenger, showing me how many are opened and how many are ignored, and if they're opened, for how long they're opened. Now, I have not yet mastered the technology to implant cameras into my parents' computers so that I can see what they're reading, because opened doesn't mean necessarily being read. So I'm trying everything, and my next plan that I'm just thinking of in my head, I haven't spoken to my principal about it yet or anybody else, would be to survey our own parents to ask them how they want to be communicated with. The irony is they have to read the email to answer the survey.
I have a quick question too in regards to this. So I just recently got elected as the SEC chair for the virtual grade 7, 8 and the gifted stream. And thank you. One of the biggest things that I'm focusing, or I'll be focusing with the team of the parents and the administrators that will be working on, would be how to connect them virtually, because that's one of the biggest things, like messaging, what you're talking about, all those things are very important. And individual newsletters, we're doing so much, but you're right. Like I see that all this effort that we're putting through is not reaching the masses. And there are parents or there are community members who would be able to benefit from these programs that all these administrators and amazing people are putting together. So what are the best ways to put it out there? I've seen Twitter and Facebook and everything work. But at the same time, you're absolutely right that I see that they see it, but they don't kind of register for it or kind of think that what this is about, and it might not be something that I want to do and things like that. So is there a way to kind of do like a central communication blast off? Because these are events which are going to benefit them apart from the education process, right? So like just a blast off that, you know what, this is in for this month, and kind of hit it 2 or 3 times somewhere, like remind, it all depends where, but I'm like, is there a way to kind of centralize it so that, okay, this is the fun things happening in Ddsb for the month of November or things like that?
So,
if I could just jump in for a second. So what we found is repetition is really the best method, whether that's on different platforms, social media platforms, whether that's on website, whether that's through newsletters. You really have to just continue with your message. You'll find that one parent might not read your Twitter message, but then they'll read the newsletter. So you really have to continue to communicate the message. And also another tip is less is more. So if you give them too much, your main point or your key message is going to be buried, and they're not going to get past the first few lines. So unfortunately, people want everything right now. So you kind of actually need to tone it down a little bit. If you think maybe it's taking you too long to read it, it probably is too long for somebody else to read it. So hopefully this helps. It will develop over time, but you do have to repeat and put the work in to deliver these messages.
I agree with the bearing of the message. You're absolutely right. Like it's like first four liners I kind of read through. As a parent, I do that sometimes too. So it's absolutely true. So no, thank you for the tip. And you know what? It's amazing work out there. Hopefully in these hard times, at least the parents feel connected too. And yeah, we can survive and make a new world out of this.
Yeah, as a parent of two boys and board, I find that the teachers are very important when they communicate to the kids and have the kids tell their parents. I know sometimes it's lost in transit, yes, but when the parents, when the teachers tell the students the story, the meaning, why, they tend to tell their parents, and sometimes just a little slip and say, make sure you give this to your parents, really helps with the primary from grade JK to grade 6, 7, 8. And then they catch their parents' attention. I think for me, it worked for me. The emails, the Twitter, the everything, it's like, yeah. But when my kids come and tell me and say, my teacher said this, I pay more attention. I look for the information and like, when is it going on? What time is it? You know, it's more important when it comes from the kids. So the teachers, you can recruit the teachers and make sure the administrators tell the teachers to tell the parents. Just take a few minutes to tell the students why it's important. Tell your mom and send a slip home. I found for me personally, that was very effective to get my attention.
Yeah, this is Hannah here from ZIAC again. I agree with Margaret as a parent that I think those are a really good way. And I think we were speaking a bit also to Frank's question, right? About that event, I was actually wondering whether that event was recorded. I know I got some information about it. And one of the things, of course, that happens with families is that, you know, the day shifts, someone's having a meltdown, someone needs something last minute, they have to work on an assignment that they didn't tell you about. And so all of those pieces. And I think the ability to come back to that workshop and then monitoring, you know, how many views are there if it's put online, if there's a metric system to monitor that, then so let's say of those 200 people who registered, did they come back later to it at a time that was more convenient for them? And the other piece is that similar to speaking to other associations, one of the things that I'm involved in or I listen to some webinars around is for families of children with developmental conditions. And so they actually are really great. They put together a bunch of webinars and they're all at particular dates, but then they're available for a month. And you can go back and watch it. And so just that flexibility, I think, is super important for one, just for general families when you've got multiple children, or even just generally for families. And then if you're adding, you know, a child with special needs on that, I think for some of the families to access that, I think it's that flexibility.
I agree with that. I'm like, when it's a recorded session, and again, you can go back and review it again if you want to. So yes, in these days where it's all virtual, I think that's a great idea.
And actually, we are working on the link for the last session, and it will be sent out to all PIC members. So I know that John has been working with his team. There are some presenters that let us put it up for short periods of time, long periods of time, but I'm pretty sure that we're actually still finalizing that link, so that one can be shared as well.
So I'm still thinking about School Messenger, and Frank, I feel your pain, but I don't know if because sometimes we get district messages, and it's a 1-800 number, and you pick it up and you get all that stuff. But sometimes, and I've heard this from the school, when the school sends a message out, it still comes out as 1-800, and it might be, you know, to think about, because I've heard parents talk about when when teachers want to talk to you, sometimes they call and people don't answer because it's the number. So if there's a way to somehow program or fix School Messenger to say when it's district-wide, maybe it says DDSB, because right now it comes unknown. And we all know how many, do you want your ducts cleaned? 1-800 numbers we get. Or it's, it's CRA asking for, this whole thing that goes on. So if we can somehow fix it to say that it's coming from DDSB, you might get more people answering the phones. And more specifically, when it's your teacher calling, that they will actually answer the phone, because it's a message from the DDSB, and I'm just going to look at my email, and heaven forbid, stop sending them at 4 o'clock, because when the phone rings and you get that long distance call, it's 4 o'clock. Oh, it's the board calling. So I don't know if anyone else experiences that, but it may help trying to reach the parents who can't go to the website, aren't reading the email. Maybe I agree, Twitter, text, but we have to be careful, because I don't know how we can collect cell phone information. But it's, I guess the reality is everyone has some sort of smart device, computer, cell phone, iPad, whatever. Or I don't know, can we collect that data from our parents so we actually know? Just thinking out loud through all this. Sorry for babbling.
Actually, Ted, I agree with you on that one, because when my phone rings and it says when it's coming from the school messenger at the school, it'll come up like Village Union Public School, and you answer it thinking it's a school, then you'll listen to the message. But if it comes up and it's a 1-800 number, half the time I don't answer it.
And it's just funny you mentioned the dog cleaning, because I get those calls 24/7 and it's really irritating. But, talking about the fact that we try to reach as much parents as we can, we are in a moment in the whole world that everybody is like virtual, and everything is email, and everything is social media. And we are sort of like getting all these blasts of so many things that things get lost in translation. So I wonder if we can have, like the simple text message, when we can have something appealing that comes to it. And I'm just thinking about Black Friday, everybody's thinking about sales, and hey, I want to get these beautiful things for my daughter or my son or for Christmas or whatever, and I want to get that sale down. And all you get from the stores is, hey, Black Friday sale, here is the link, done. So Kimberly mentioned something that is important, which is, when you have too much, people kind of like tend to be like, oh, whatever, I read it later. So the shorter, the better. So if we can have something that is short and sweet and just kind of like impacts the parents right there. And yeah, I agree. Most parents, may not have that ability to have a Facebook or Instagram or whatever social media, but everybody has a cell phone, or, like at least 99% of the population has it. So if there is a simple text message that has that little short, sweet text and hey, here it is, check it out, that's it. So maybe that makes more impact than just having like a whole long list of things that parents might be kind of like overwhelmed trying to keep up with it. Just again, thinking out loud and going after the story from Ted of the dog cleaning.
Just in favor of time, thank you so much, Kimberly. We'll move on to the next subcommittee, which is welcome to the DDSB committee. If the representative wants to speak on that.
Good evening again, it's Kavita. So I'm going to give you a brief update of the welcome to the DDSB committee. So the goal of this committee is to help parents and guardians navigate the existing resources we have in our system, in our school board. Often parents, especially parents that are new to the school board, or if it's their first child that's going through the school system, they don't know where they can find supports, they can access resources, and we're hoping to make this process easier. We know that we have tons of amazing resources across the board, across various departments, and everyone can benefit from these resources, but sometimes it's just many layers that they have to go through before they get to these resources. So that's the goal of the committee. At this time, we haven't met yet. We're planning to meet in the new year, starting in Jan 2021. And the members that I have so far for this committee are Michelle Montgomery, Margaret Okunyoka, and Trish Clark. Anyone else who's planning on being part of this committee, you can reach out to me. I'm going to email the members or even reach out to Mano, and she will connect you to me. And that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Kavita. Our last committee is Programs Committee. If the representative would like to speak in regards to that.
Hello, my name is Sarah, and I'm the leader for the Pro-Grant Committee. The goal of the Pro-Grant Committee is to support parents in identifying barriers in parent engagement in their own community and in their school, and to find local solutions to involve parents in supporting the well-being and student achievement at their school. Last year, while we were designing the grants, we took into consideration the Ddsb priorities, such as success, well-being, leadership, equity, engagement, and innovation when writing the grant proposal. The first brainstorming meeting will be held in January, and it will be held with PIC members, SCC chairs, and administrators by municipalities. If you are interested in joining this wonderful committee, where we receive a grant from the government and make these projects come alive in schools and schools and communities, please email me. My email will be in the chat, and you are welcome to join the Pro-Grant Committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Sarah, and thank you to all the committees for speaking and sharing a little bit. It seemed like there was a lot of opportunity for others to join, so if there's anybody on the committee who wants to reach out to any of those people, or even through Manon as a resource for connecting, please do. It was a pleasure of being part of a couple committees last year, and I think that you can really explore a huge knowledge base by becoming a part of them. I'm going to pass it over to Erin. Erin's going to speak about the Pro-Grant brainstorming session planning.
Great, thank you. And I'm going to really add to what Sarah had said. So I don't know, John, if we have the slide or not, and if we don't, we can manage, but oh, there it is. So Sarah gave us some information on programs already, which was fantastic, so thank you. But as we begin planning and thinking about our brainstorming session and how we're going to engage SCC chairs from across the system, how we're going to engage administrators and supervisory officers in that process, we also want to have a bit of an idea of the purpose. And really, as we move forward with programs, we really want to, again, continue to, as we've already really been talking about some great strategies, support school engagement in the school community and really identify some of those barriers to engagement and start to address some of those barriers. We have lots of ideas here this evening, like I said. And again, we want to respect parents as valued partners in education. So that's hopefully what our programs are looking to do. So what we were hoping to do and working with the chairs is having a program launch and planning evening. We're sometime in January, and we'll discuss that today when that might be. We come together with all SCC chairs from across the district and administrators and supervisory officers to plan potentially what municipality-based programs could look like. So Oshawa schools could come together to create a program application, or Whitby schools, schools in the north, virtual school. So we're starting to put some of our families of schools together with similar ideas, seeing as it's going to be virtual, that might give us a little bit more flexibility. So what we're kind of thinking about right now is we need to determine a date in January for that planning, and just seek some of your feedback on that process and your thoughts on that right now before moving forward. And so we'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions on that process and the large planning event and what you think about that as a way to kick off our programs this year. So I see 3 people have raised their hands. Who they are is what I need to see, which I can't see right now. So if you have your hand raised, please feel free to join us and give us your thoughts on this process.
Okay, I'll go first. Aaron, I thought there was something sent out earlier about meeting with the administrators and their SECs during the month of November, December, because I remember specifically giving dates to say that I was available. Is that something we're still going to do, or have we pivoted that we're going to do it in this fashion where we'll have one date and we'll hopefully get everybody from the regions in?
I think that was the plan. So I think it's very similar to what was sent out. So administrators, yes. SEC chairs, yes. It was just pushed to January, I believe. And then hopefully if we all come together on the same day and register, we can break off into those groups that you're speaking of. Does that make sense, Ted?
Yeah, I guess I reached to John to say, do we have the capacity for breakout rooms when we do this?
Yeah, yes, we have.
Okay. All right. Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think the thought was that we would reach out to and join SEC meetings just to really bolster up the program and the ability or the advantage of going together on this would help, because I guess all I can think about is Pickering all these schools did it last year, and we're lucky enough to actually get it in before March 13th. So it's something that I think is a great idea to do. I just hope we can do it district wide.
And so that would be great, Ted, if we know that we're all coming together in January, if there's opportunities at the December SEC meeting for us to make sure we get on, or we share with all the SEC chairs to be on the agenda to let everybody know that we're planning to come together on this date, that might be helpful.
Agreed.
We did have some other hands. Did some others want to give some thought?
Margaret has her hand up.
Not at this time. I think my raised hand was for the earlier session.
Sorry. Awesome. So what we might do, if this makes sense, and you can say yes or no, I'm just thinking of the easiest way. So if we wanted to pick a date in January for us all to come together, break out into groups, what we could do is do a doodle survey with all of you to see which date in January is best for all of you. And then once we have a common date, we can work with Menno on a registration process so that SEC chairs and the SEC members can then register, and we can make sure that we have appropriate breakout group for that. How does that sound as a plan moving forward for that?
Aaron, could we reach out to all our administrators to find out when potentially their meetings are in January? Because I think, and I'm just going by experience, most of them will be maybe near the end of the month. If we can pick something in the middle of the month, and we know we're not colliding with any other meetings.
That's a great suggestion, Ted. Thank you for that. We would want to make sure that we don't have them on the same week if at all possible, because we know then that could pull on people. So that's great, thank you. And if we do the survey with all of you, yeah, you would really only have 2 per area, so we'll have to get that information, so thank you.
So Aaron, is the intent just to bring the SECs and the administrators from each region?
It's from every school would be invited. So let's say
we'd have parents as well?
SEC, yes.
Okay.
Yes, the SEC chairs usually, or another representative. So every school in Pickering with an SEC chair and the administrator would be invited, and hopefully the SO as well. And any members they want to bring along would meet in a Pickering room all together. We may have to look at just the numbers.
Are you suggesting basically that you'll end up setting up like separate Zoom meetings for each individual group, like Oshawa, Whitby, Pickering? or is it going to be like one meeting for everybody?
So if, John, you can go to the next slide, and this is proposed, right? So if you have other ideas, please know that we're open to all of those. But one of the things we were thinking of would be to start as a large group all together, to go over the program process, to go over the criteria for the proposals, what it might look like. Some of the, we could have 1 or 2 per municipality. And then from there, the links would be provided to go in your specific area to a breakout room. So we'd all be together to start and then break out. But open to feedback on that. If you think that there's a more effective way to do that, happy to hear it.
So how, Erin, how would that look? So you have the main group and then the breakout group according to the towns. And so who would lead? Would there be an agenda created prior, or how would that work once there's a breakout?
Perfect. So that the thinking is, and it's still in the planning with all of you, the thinking is the superintendent for that area could help with an agenda and to guide some of that conversation. If by chance the superintendent isn't available, then a principal from that group of schools would help to guide that conversation. Of course, the parent voice is what really, there'd be questions and things, but the parent voice is really what we want to hear in that process. We really want to hear what the parents feel that they need in the programs, and not that it becomes, you know, the opinion of the person leading the conversation. So there would be guiding questions and conversation starters and somebody to lead that conversation.
Erin, it's Kim. Sorry, just a suggestion maybe would be at the end, maybe to come together as a group again, and the recorder of whatever session they were in, or maybe the superintendent could maybe list a couple of the highlights, just to see what the ideas were, if they were similar or different, just so people have an idea of what came out of the discussions.
Yeah, that would be great, because if by chance the areas are different, if we're still in a virtual platform, I may have a program for Pickering Family of Schools, but I might be in Oshawa, and because there's a virtual link, there could still be opportunities for others to attend, right? So something to consider as well. And that would be part of, we heard from Sarah, the program committee of the selection, to make sure that there's some variety across the district as well within the selection committee.
Aaron, I think last year we talked about, because there was only so many schools that came together. I think in Pickering there was, I'm going to say 3/4 of the schools, but if it becomes virtual, then there may not be a reason why, if we don't pick different, or if we do pick different dates, why we couldn't invite the whole region to say, here's what's going to be talked about through the Pickering community. Here's what Oshawa's going to talk about. Here's what. And if they're all different things, people could just pick and choose which ones they choose to attend. And that way we actually capitalize on the money the province gives us. And we could do it for the whole district. Not like the parent involvement or the big parent committee, but don't want to crush that. But it could be very similar, right?
Absolutely. And, you know, Pickering would have their own needs and Oshawa would have their own needs that they determine. And then anyone in the system that may also want to benefit from that learning would most definitely be invited. We will also want a subcommittee for virtual school, because the needs of parents and families in a virtual school looks very different than the needs of and the interests of people and families that might be in bricks and mortar schools. So that would be interesting too. I know that I've heard a little bit from the admin at virtual school about the well-being when you're online all the time and strategies for that. So it would be interesting to see what comes out of that, but definitely making it open brings so many opportunities.
I guess I saw just a reminder that all parents involved in the virtual schools are also still connected to their home schools, correct?
Yes, they are connected there as well, yes. Some are, some aren't. So, you know, many are, and then others, there is an SCC for virtual school as well. So we just want to make sure we include them. Any other thoughts and questions about that? Because that is kind of our next step as to where we're coming together next in January. And so if you have any input or thoughts we want to consider, now's a great time.
Sorry, Anne. As long as the technology is there for us to do this, I think it's a fabulous idea. So
previously, with John's help in the summer with Indigenous education, we ran speaker series events, is what we called them. And we did 6 of them, maybe 7, John. And we had close to 12 to 1,200 attend sometimes. And there was definitely capacity for that. So I think it's doable. So it would be interesting to see what our numbers look like in some previous programs and some previous events to something like this that's planned in a district and then opened up to all.
sorry, I have to ask, is this a Zoom thing or is this WebEx, or are we going to engage in something that's safe for everyone to connect to?
That's a John question for sure. John, can you help us with that?
Primarily, we would be dealing with a Zoom-based platform. It all depends on the scale and the engagement that you're looking for. If we want to have the most amount of engagement, then we would want to keep it off of YouTube. But if we scale too large, then engagement becomes tricky because we have to control the environment as much as we can. So we can switch to a format called webinar where we can allow Q&A, but it doesn't allow as good of two-way communication.
Yeah.
So it all depends on the scale of the event, but it would most likely be on Zoom and or partly on YouTube.
Thank you for that. Are there any other questions? I think that is the end of our information this evening. I'll certainly pass it back to Valerie and Tiffany to close us off, unless there's other questions for me at this time. All right, I will pass it back to our co-chairs.
I think Frank had his hand up.
About that, Frank, I can't actually see hands at this moment, so please jump in.
Thanks, Erin. I've solved the communications problem. I've been thinking about it, and if we get children from elementary schools and secondary schools to run the information for us or to broadcast the information for us, at the very least, all of their parents and friends and grandparents will watch. So if we put together a message and then record them, like I know the only way to bring parents out to the school is to put their kids on stage. I think we should just do the same virtually, and we will attract many more people.
Well done, Frank.
We knew he'd get there. He was not giving up.
Just took a while, but I am being a little bit serious. I do think that if we take our message and put it in the mouths of our students, saying, hey, parents, we need you to support the schools to be involved with that, I might work. It's worth a try.
Absolutely. And when we're working with those SCCs in the districts, those parents will know of their children and whether they're interested in supporting those types of things as well. So that those are great connections. And I think absolutely student voice is the way to go. I see something in the chat box. We have some thumbs up, Frank. Wonderful. Valerie and Tiffany, I'll pass it back to you ladies to close us off for the evening.
All right, thank you. Tiffany?
Yes, thank you everyone for coming tonight, and thank you for all of your feedback, and hopefully everybody got a little bit of something to learn tonight, as well as if you'd like to reach out to those subcommittees, please do. The information was in the chat, so don't forget to grab it before you head out there. And we'll see you at our next meeting in December.
Lovely seeing you all. Have a great evening.
As well. Have a great week, all.
Welcome.